The workman's comp reform you referred to, they say that was joke reform. We need real reform. We need to allow people.
Who are the real people you're talking about?
Any lawyer who deals with workman's comp.
I deal with it. Why don't you listening to me?
You're watching Public Affairs. Berkowitz is my name. Politics is our game. We are going to be doing lots of politics and especially public policy this evening because we have as our guest Phil Corboy. He's one of the most prominent trial lawyers across the country, let alone Illinois and the city of Chicago. But Phil, we're going to talk about a lot else. But let me just start out. We're going to do, folks, a really quick lightning round. It's almost like word association. I say a word or a phrase, and Phil gives an answer. Then we'll come back after a minute or so and get into the meat of the show. Governor Rauner's turnaround agenda.
A lot of fluff, no substance.
The presidential primary is Democratic.
Very interesting and probably going to get more interesting in the next couple of weeks.
Presidential primary is Republican.
What a circus and 100% entertainment.
Judicial candidate reform.
If we're talking about merit selection, sounds great, doesn't work.
The main difference between Democrats and Republicans.
Republicans worry about the bottom line in corporations. Democrats worry about the individuals.
Legal practice changes in the last 4 decades. He's only 25, folks, but he's heard what it's been going on, right?
The practice has changed. In my business, there are fewer trials, more arbitrations, and I feel that in the 1970s there was much more substance and much more of a desire to get to the truth than there is right now.
Is it still a profession?
Oh, God, absolutely.
Really? Is it a learned profession?
It's a learned profession.
Isn't it just a job? It's an occupation? It's like, you know, being an auto mechanic.
No, the minute it becomes just a job, I'm out of here. I'm leaving. I'm going somewhere else. I don't treat it as a job. I treat it as something that I'd love to do and I'd love to get to work doing every morning.
Abortion.
Very personal.
Gun rights.
I understand the Second Amendment, but there have to be some controls.
Marriage equality.
A necessary civil right.
Restoring Illinois.
Sounds great. Give me more substance.
What we're going to do today is talk with Phil Corboy about tort reform. Phil knows a little bit about this subject, a little bit about Phil. You know, as I said, he's one of the most prominent trial lawyers really across the country. If you say Phil Corboy, his dad was quite prominent, Phil is quite prominent, his law firm Corboy and Demetrio, quite prominent. You know, they focus on product liability, they focus on what, Phil?
Medical malpractice, transportation safety.
It's a nationwide profile.
We have a nationwide profile.
You're based here in the Chicago Loop, but you practice across the country.
All around pretty much all 50 states, not just the Continental. Yeah.
You folks are all trial lawyers. Or would you do some people who do what I did, litigators, and hardly ever went to trial? Or do you folks all go to trial?
We like to think of people who call themselves litigators, people who push a lot of paper and resolve cases by either arbitration, mediation, or settling. We actually take cases to juries and get verdicts and then take them up the appellate ladder.
So you've tried a few cases in your career is what, 30, 35 years?
Yeah, I started in 1978.
Started as assistant state's attorney, right?
Right. Worked my way through, ended up at 26 in California for 5 years.
Criminal
and then
prosecutions?
Criminal prosecutions.
What kind of stuff?
Murders, rapes, armed robberies.
You put a few people in jail?
I've got, not only did I send a lot of people to jail, but some of those people are still there.
They're not coming to get you?
No, they're there for a reason.
I want to get away if they're coming.
They're there for a reason. I go to bed and sleep very comfortably.
How many cases did you try when you were assistant state's attorney?
I tried 40 cases to jury trial. Since then, I've tried about another 15 or 20.
And those have been all civil?
All civil cases since I left 26th in California as a state's attorney back in 1985.
As the police would say, your biggest caller? You know, the biggest lawsuit, the biggest settlement, the biggest amount of time at trial, however you want to do it. What's your biggest caller, as the cops would say?
Well, talking about my biggest case, I've had a number of cases, you know, $15 to $20 million range, and I've also sent people to jail that were sent there 35 years ago. They're still there.
What was that range you just mentioned? What was the biggest, what was the settlement?
Well, I've had a number of trials and settlements, between $15 and $20 million.
$15 and $20 million, a verdict for one person?
One person on 2 different occasions, yeah.
So what, you get like $3 or $4 out of that? Standard rate, 25%, 30%, 40%?
It's what we work with our clients.
Somewhere in that 25 to 40 range?
We work with our clients, whatever's fair and reasonable under the circumstances.
So you've got a feel for our guest, Phil Corboy, and he lives in Winnetka, right?
Right down the street from you, Jeff.
Not anymore, my friend.
Oh, that's right.
I'm a man of the people. I live in Evanston now.
Which is where I grew up, for everybody who wants to know.
He lives with his lovely wife, Margaret. They have 2 college-age kids, right?
My pride and joy.
But most importantly, he's most proud that recently he became one of several underwriters of public affairs. We now have Republicans and Democrats underwriting public affairs. And we truly thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And as you'll see in a few minutes, it doesn't matter. I just want it out there because people should say, you know, if you have a guest and he's underwriting this show and other shows, but if anybody thinks I'm going to go easy on Phil, or Phil's going to go easy on me, we got another thought coming.
I'd be disappointed if you did, Jeff.
All right, so the thing of it is, Phil, Rauner, you know that guy, Governor Rauner, right?
Never met him. Know who he is, though.
He has this thing called the turnaround agenda. And part of his turnaround agenda is tort reform. You know what he says? The business climate is lousy. And he says, it's nothing personal because you both live in Winnetka. He has one of his homes in Winnetka. You've got a few homes, and one of those is in Winnetka, right? So you are sort of neighbors. So not personal, but he would say one of the things that's really hurting the state of Illinois is our tort lawyers like you, or at least the fact that we have a poor business climate because businesses are afraid to come to Chicago, Cook County, Illinois, because the U.S. Chamber of Commerce in a recent survey that they did of more than 1,200 senior general counsel, in-house counsel, senior business executives who have to deal with litigation on a daily basis, they said Illinois is ranked number 48 out of 50 states.
I'm surprised the Chamber of Commerce hasn't named us 50 because they've done that in the past with no facts to base it on. But the simple fact of the matter is the government wants to run us out of business because it hurts his business model about how states should be run, which is all business, very few people. What we do as trial lawyers is equalize everything. We put together our cases with the understanding that we're going to abide by the 7th Amendment, which guarantees the right to a jury trial. And we're firm believers that should disputes get elevated to the point where they need to be tried in a court of law, that it be done fairly. And that is, pick a jury of our peers and let them decide what's going on. Mr. Rauner, as a multi-gazillionaire, has taken the position he doesn't like that. And as you know, if you take a look at his history with his businesses, they've been subject to a lot of verdicts on behalf of every ordinary people around the country. And I can understand why he doesn't like us. It's because we had been zinging him for quite a long time now, and he'd like to do what he can to get rid of us. He thinks that the state of Illinois should be run as a business, which means bottom line profits basically are the end all to be all. We have a fundamental disagreement on how to help Illinois become a bigger and better state. We know where he comes from. He knows where we come from. It's pretty easy to understand why it is he doesn't like us.
Okay.
But that's okay. Every day we walk into court, we've got lawyers on the other side that don't like us either. We're okay with that. We're happy with that.
When you say Governor Rauner doesn't like us, who are you referring to?
Trial lawyers and litigants in lawsuits.
But you know, this survey, Phil, and you glossed over, he's a heck of a lawyer, because he's really smooth. Because you glossed over what I said, Illinois is number 48. It's not like all the states are equal. It's not like all the states are suffering from tort cases. Illinois is 48th out of 50. 48th. There are only 2 states worse in the union. So what he's saying is businesses, when they're thinking about where to locate, they go to one of the better states. They go to Iowa, which is often number 4 or 5. The survey ranks the states in various ways, but they're up there. Michigan is up there. Wisconsin is up there. All of the competitors. Indiana is up there. New York is even up there. Okay? California and Louisiana and Illinois are like on the bottom. The point is what you need to address, Phil. How can we compete? How can Illinois compete when the companies look at us and say, oh, Iowa's much better, Wisconsin's much better, in terms of how long suits take to resolve, in terms of unnecessary discovery, in terms of unnecessary lawsuits being filing. Focus on Illinois, because that's what the survey said from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. It says Illinois is way worse than almost every other state.
United States Chamber of Commerce. Look who put together this poll. And this was a poll of general counsel for Fortune 500 companies that are worth more than $100 million. And this was a poll that was conducted. What's that? 100 million?
Oh, my Fortune 500 if it's more than
$100 million. Okay. And to be a company that has revenues or assets in excess of $100 million, you can understand the pool of the people that responded to the poll. The United States Chamber of Commerce would like nothing other than to get rid of the tort system in Illinois. As far as 48th in the country, they rank us there because we are a very, very fair state. We have laws based on the Illinois Constitution going back over 100 years that protect people, litigants in lawsuits, consumers in class actions, and things of that nature. You can understand why it is that they don't like us. It's because we're very, very successful, and we have a system that works. And besides that, I want to remind everybody who's listening to this, when they talk about how, when certain elements of the business community attack us and talk about how long it takes to go to trial, 100% of all the litigation, say, in the Cook County Courthouse, how much of that do you think is devoted to plaintiffs' personal injury litigation? And that includes product liability, medical malpractice, transportation liability issues. How much of those do you think are devoted? 100% of the pool of cases that are in the Cook County Circuit Court system. What percentage of those?
You can do, Phil, a lot of damage with a small percentage of cases.
3%.
Yeah, but
do you know how much is devoted to business versus business litigation? Do you know how much are devoted to divorce litigation? It's got nothing to do with us. But if you were to check the business-to-business litigation, it's incredible. Corporation A suing Corporation B, they have it out. They hate to have 3 huge law firms throwing bodies at this litigation. That's where most of the litigation takes place in the Chicago, in the Daly Center, which is the heart of the Cook County system.
Yeah, but you know, Phil, you took a shot at the chamber because it was underwritten. Phil, it was underwritten by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, but it was performed by the Harris pool. You're underwriting the show. Would you say that? Would you say this show is discredited because you're underwriting it? Because you attack the Chamber of Commerce? Isn't it the same thing? It's your question of how that poll was done by the Harris poll, a legitimate poll. This show is done, I hope, by a legitimate host, Jeff Berkowitz. So the fact that you're underwriting the show, I don't think, it doesn't take from our credibility because, as I pointed out, Republicans underwrite. We're fair and balanced. I'm proud that Phil Corboy's here. I'm proud that Republicans have underwritten. I'm proud we can attract both. I agree. It would be better if this survey was underwritten both by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and, say, a labor organization or a
American Association of Justice, which is my national trial advocacy group in Washington. Is.
I think it would be all to the better, and I'll recommend it to them when they hear it. But nevertheless, okay, it still was a poll done by Harris, which you would agree is a reputable organization.
Sure.
They outline, you know, you can find out about this by going to instituteforlegalreform.com/states. You'll find this survey there, the results, both the executive summary and the full survey. They go through in painstaking detail, which I won't, what Harris did to make it a legitimate survey. More than 1,200 individuals were contacted by phone and online.
General counsel.
But also senior business executives. People who have to deal with business litigation, I understand. Nevertheless, the question is to get them to rate one state relative to another, and you keep going away from that.
I'm answering it right now, Jeff. Ready? Every one of the respondents to that poll had something to do with big business. They were either general counsel or they were people in senior executive positions with these companies. I don't know anybody that went to an address in downtown or one of the neighborhoods in Evanston, Illinois, right around the corner from here, whoever contacted by them. Of course, Jeff, I could take a poll of every member of the American Association for Justice, which are all trial lawyers, and they'll tell you that they would come up with just the exact opposite poll results.
No.
You have to look at how widely distributed the polling goes out and tries to find people from every segment of society. And I'm not at all surprised. They do this every year. They say that there's something called the judicial hellholes, and they always rank Madison County and downstate Illinois and Cook County and northern Illinois. We've been used to this for a long time, and again,
according to these respondents, again, there were 1,200. These are people who said they were knowledgeable about 4 or 5 states. So essentially you had 5,000 evaluations of the relative business climate as to tort reform in the 50 states. That's the point I keep coming back to. You're saying they're all business people, and even if I concede that, and even if I concede there's a bias, these people came out saying, 20% of them said the worst jurisdiction is Chicago and Cook County. The only jurisdiction that had more of these people saying it was as bad or comparable is 26% said East Texas. 10% said Miami. What's the difference between Cook County and Miami? 10%. What's the difference between even Washington, D.C.? 5%. And Iowa doesn't even get mentioned ever as the worst. Michigan doesn't, I don't think it's mentioned. See my point? Again, I keep asking you and urging you, because our viewers are going to want this, Phil. Address the fact that these business people, even if we assume arguendo, as your favorite William F. Buckley would say, even if we assume arguendo that you're right about that there's a bias, why is Illinois faring much worse than Iowa, than Michigan, than Ohio, than Wisconsin, our closest competitors?
Well, I don't know if they're our closest competitors. We happen to be the extreme epicenter of the Midwest revival in the economy. But the fact of the matter is, Jeff, that we are very, very successful here in Illinois because we have a very pro-people, pro-consumer, very, very active state constitution that protects the rights of people that corporations generally don't like to see against them in lawsuits. It's just that simple.
You say Illinois is far ahead of our surrounding states in terms of protecting the rights of injured people more than Ohio, more than Michigan, more than Wisconsin, more than New York? I mean, New York's a pretty blue state.
Yeah, it might be a pretty blue state, and I don't know where New York falls outside the top 5, but I will tell you this right now. I'd like to think we do things a little bit differently here in Chicago and Illinois than we do anywhere else in the country.
Let's go. So we just argue back and forth.
Sure.
Give us a sense of what people are complaining about and see if you can address that, and then we'll move on quickly, okay?
Sure.
They had 10 elements for this ranking that they asked people to rank them on. Overall treatment of tort and contract cases. Illinois comes in number 48. Indiana, number 11, Wisconsin, number 21, Iowa, number 6. Overall treatment of tort and contract cases. Now, stop me when you want to say something. Number 2, the element, meaningful venue requirements. In other words, you can't just plop down in Madison County or Cook County. You have to have some nexus, if I remember law school right, okay? If I remember.
Close enough.
So meaningful venue, Wisconsin ranks 22, Indiana ranks 23, Illinois ranks 48. You don't have to have squat, so to speak, okay? Treatment of class actions and mass consolidation suits. That's where people like you and other tort lawyers make a lot of their money, class actions. Illinois ranks number 49 according to these business people. Indiana 17, Wisconsin 28, Iowa number 10. Damages, you know, are they treated fairly on damages? Iowa 5, Illinois 48, Indiana 16. Timeliness of summary judgment or dismissal, similar rankings. I won't bother with that. Give people an idea of these elements that go into these businessmen. Phil says they're all biased. Discovery, science and technology. You know, you're a Democrat, right? You're big on science. You say Republicans are anti-science. They say too much in Cook County and Chicago, junk science. Give you a chance to respond. Judges' impartiality, way low for Illinois. Judges' competence, way low. Jury's fairness, way low. Okay, your turn.
Finished?
Yes.
Okay. We do things differently in Illinois than they do in different parts of the Midwest. If somebody wants to move to Wisconsin because they have a better civil justice system, God love them. Same thing for Michigan, same with Ohio, same with Missouri, and same with Indiana. God love you. We happen to live in a very complex, sophisticated society here in Chicago. I'm very proud of it. We do things the right way here. And I can understand, it should be simple to understand why the United States Chamber of Commerce and its allies in the business world don't like us. We're really good about what we do. And we're really good and successful at protecting the rights of individuals that come to us as clients. I have nothing to be ashamed of, nor do I have anything to be apologetic for.
Do we have good judges here?
We have wonderful judges. Very educated, by the way.
Who picks the judges? And don't give me the civics 101, give me the reality, because
Sure.
Everybody would know you're involved in the Democratic Party. I don't say that in any way that's negative. You have an idea of what goes on in the world. You have an idea of how things are done, right? You know,
God hope at this age.
Eddie Burke and the Cook County, slating committee, they pretty much slate the circuit court judges. Yes, there's an election, but if you got that slating, you're way ahead of the game. You would agree.
Is that anywhere different than anywhere in the United States where there are elections held where people then either do or don't get elected to judicial office? Now, if you're talking about the difference between elective judicial screenings, or if you're talking about what we like to call merit selection, that's a different subject for a different time, which we can get into if you want.
Another time.
But the thing that the Democratic Party of Cook County will always do, will try to promote racial and economic equality. We have a large number of blacks on the bench. We have a large number of women on the bench. We have a large number of Hispanics on the bench. And we have a large number of white, middle-aged white guys like you and me that are on the bench.
Endangered species. You would agree.
No, we're not. No. The Cook County Democratic Party has as its guidelines, officially written down in their bylaws, I understand, as well as what they like to do politically is try to get a whole panoply of people getting involved in these elections, and most importantly, having a rounded group of people on the ballot every 2 years. It works, and I understand the basis and the reasoning behind merit selection.
Eddie talked about that. He's chairman of the Finance Committee. Some would say he's more powerful than the mayor or any other mayor. He's been around for, 40 years or so as alderman or thereabouts. What Eddie says goes. There's Eddie's vote, past Eddie Burke. His wife is on the Supreme Court. You're not going to deny that.
A wonderful justice.
Isn't that in good part due to the fact that he was doing the slating? Nobody even ran against her in the Democratic Party.
I think everybody realized that Justice Ann Burke has a remarkable background. She went to law school later in her life after starting the Special Olympics here in Chicago. She has a real nice touch with ordinary common folk. Something that she learned probably sitting next to her husband for all those years when he was getting elected year after year after year. It's not only the committeeman but also as the alderman.
Doesn't Alderman Burke have a lot to say about who gets slated, more so than maybe 20 or 2,000 or 20,000 people? If Ed Burke says jump, these candidates all say how high. Can that be a conducive, healthy? Wouldn't it be better if we had something closer to a democratic
Jeff,
decision?
Look at me in the eye and tell me that you have a problem with democratically held elections putting people in public offices. In this case, judges. Yeah. What is wrong with that? You're asking the people...
The information costs are way too high. Even I, as a lawyer, would know who
Jeff, let's stop for a second.
Let's concentrate it in the hands of a few people.
That's not elections. This is not El Salvador.
We can hold it against them.
Jeff.
If they screw up, we can hold it against them. Give it to the governor. If he screws up, next time around he won't get elected. Now, if Eddie Burke screws up, who knows?
Are you asking me to put judicial elections in the hand of Governor Rauner?
Or Governor,
please don't go there.
Or Governor Quinn, whoever, or Governor Edgar, or Governor Thompson. I'm saying I'll go with whoever it is, day in, day out, who's a Republican or Democrat, because then it's concentrated. Then they will be held accountable. If they do a good job, they'll be rewarded. If they do a bad job, they'll be booted out.
Jeff, if you're trying to
get me,
competition means putting your name out there on a ballot and letting the people decide. That's the ultimate in competition.
Let's go on.
What about it?
There's just no cause. There's no good way. We're not deciding causation. Everybody, number one, you and I would agree on this. Let's start with where there's agreement. Everybody knows that the costs are higher per employee for workman's comp in Illinois, especially relative to surrounding states. You can see Mike Flannery, who's no right-winger. You can see him have people come on his Sunday morning show, Fox 32 Chicago. And these employers will say, I'm moving to Indiana because my workman's comp costs are too high. And you and I think, would agree that's the case. We only disagree as to what's the cause of that disparity, right? Do I have that right?
No, we don't agree. And I'll tell you where we disagree. In 2013, there was extensive, what I'll call, workers' compensation reform packages instituted in the state of Illinois. And they were intended for two reasons. Number one, drive down the cost to employers, and to simplify the system. As a result...
And to make us more competitive with our surroundings.
Make us more competitive. And...
Because one thing, just let's say one thing, Nico, because Governor Rauner likes to say, we can't be compassionate unless we're competitive. can't be compassionate unless we're competitive.
I'm ready to continue when you let me go. Ready? These reforms were enacted by a bipartisan group down in Springfield, signed into law. By the way, the Democrats ran the House, the Democrats ran the Senate, and the Democrats ran the governor's office.
They ran the state.
They ran the state, and we instituted those reforms. As part of those reforms, rates were supposed to come down for premiums to employers. They didn't happen. Right now, employers have a very good argument when they complain, we gave into this bipartisan group in 2013, and we haven't seen our rates come down. Why is that? Talk to the insurance company. Talk to the insurance people down in Springfield. The insurance companies have not allowed their profits to go down as a result of those reforms. And as a result, they're making more and more money, and they're doing it on the backs of the employers.
Approximately, how many insurance companies do we have selling workman's comp insurance in Illinois?
I can't tell you how many.
10, 20,
I don't know.
100?
I don't know. I don't know. I just will tell you the numbers. The numbers have gone up. The numbers have gone up in the last 5 to 10 years.
Numbers of companies?
Yes.
They've come up. So we have even more point. We're having even more competition. With all that competition, you can't fix prices. We have laws against it. And if you've got 100 companies out there competing, surely our Justice Department or our Justice Agency under your Attorney General, Lisa Madigan, would ferret that out. I haven't heard her say peep about anti-competitive workman's comp insurance companies. So if we got competition, then apparently we have the competitive rate.
The competition, on the other hand,
is just too high. Because of the causation issue. Go ahead.
Ready?
Tell people about
insurance companies. Insurance companies right now have what is known as an antitrust exemption to a review of their books. Did you know that, Jeff?
There is an antitrust, McCarran Ferguson, right?
They're not allowed to have their books disturbed. The groups now get in.
No, wait a second.
Yes, they do, Jeff. Go ahead, Jeff.
Okay. We have an exemption, but I don't think it means their books can't be looked at.
Their books, to a certain extent, cannot be looked at, and they will not open up their books to show how much money they are making. We only have the.
Lisa Madigan can't open them up. The Attorney General of the United States can't open them up. It's called a subpoena. Come on, you know about this.
Jeff,
we have all sorts
Jeff,
of
why are you arguing with me? I do this every day. The insurance companies have not passed along the reforms that were intended to take the load off the backs of employers.
Costs haven't gone down.
Pardon? You're right. The costs have not gone down. And why have they not gone down? Jeff, listen to me. They haven't gone down because the rates have not been backed have not been brought back in order to comply with what the rule of thumb was, and what they were intending to do was to take off the burden from the shoulders of the employers.
There's still a problem with causation. Can an employee walk in after he hurt his back playing Frisbee on a Sunday and file a claim on Monday with his employer and say, you owe me?
He absolutely can, but you know what's going to happen? The arbitrator in there is going to say, mediator rather, is going to say, I'm sorry, you're out of luck.
You sure?
Go back. I'm absolutely positive.
So all the people who say we don't have a clear, good way of resolving causation, they're all wrong. All those lawyers are wrong. Everybody.
Who are all those lawyers?
Anybody. Anybody who's talked about workmen, they say...
People who talk about workers' comp.
The workman's comp reform you referred to, they say that was joke reform. We need real reform. We need to allow people...
Who are the real people you're talking about?
Any lawyer who deals with workman's comp?
I deal with it. Why aren't you listening to me?
Well, I am listening to you.
And I'm telling you right now, as soon as the rates come down, everybody will be a lot happier, but that means that the insurance companies have to reduce their rates to employers. It is so easy to blame the poor victims in this case at the expense of anybody else. The fact of the matter is, when the rates come down, it'll be a much fairer system, and when the rates come down, that's only going to happen when the insurance companies do that. Jeff, I love coming on this television show.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Phil Corboy, Corboy to meet you. And you remember, Phil's going to come back, but you come back next week and every week to Public Affairs.